Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavala Girivaradhari Gopi Janavala Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajadanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajadanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavala Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajadanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Shtutarashata Srimad Goswami Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Shtutarashata Srimad Danya Goswami Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaja Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadhirayat Nashta Prayeshava Nishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Suttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. This morning we are reading from the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 25, the characteristics of King Puranjana, text 47. Kadyota virmukhi cha prag. Virmukhi cha. Kadyota virmukhi cha prag. Dvara vaikatra nirmite. Dvara vaikatra nirmite. Vibrajitam janapadam. Vibrajitam janapadam. Yachitabhyam dyumatsakha. Yachitabhyam dyumatsakha. Kadyota virmukhi cha prag. Dvara vaikatra nirmite. Vibrajitam janapadam. Yachitabhyam dyumatsakha. Rajatam janapadam. Word for word. Kadyota. Of the name Kadyota. Avirmukhi. Of the name Avirmukhi. Cha also. Prak towards the eastern side. Dvarau, 2 gates. Ekatra, in one place. Nirmite, were constructed. Vibrajitam, of the name Vibrajita. Janapadam, city. Yati, used to go. Tabhyam, by them. Dyumat, of the name Dyuman. Sakkaha, with his friend. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: the 2 gates named Kadyota and Avirmukhi were situated facing the eastern side, but they were constructed in one place. Through those 2 gates, the king used to go to the city of Vibrajita, accompanied by a friend whose name was Dyuman. Purport: the 2 names Kadyota and Avirmukhi mean glowworm and torchlight. Kadyota means glowworm and Avirmukhi means torchlight. This indicates that of the 2 eyes, the left eye is less powerful in its ability to see. Although both eyes are constructed in one place, one is stronger than the other in the power to see. The king or the living entity uses these 2 gates to see things properly, but he cannot see unless accompanied by a friend whose name is Dyuman. This friend is the sun. Although the 2 eyes are situated in one place, they have no power to see without the sunlight. Vibrajitam Janapadam. If one wants to see something very clearly, Vibrajitam, he must see it with 2 eyes and the assistance of his friend, the sunlight. Within the body, everyone is a king because he uses his different gates according to his own will. Although he is very much proud of his power to see or hear, he is nonetheless dependent on the assistance of nature. Kadyota Vimukhi Chaprag Dvara Vikatra Nirmite Vibrajitam Janapadam Yati Tabhyam Dyumat Sakha. Translation: the 2 gates named Kadyota and Avirmukhi were situated facing the eastern side, but they were constructed in one place. Through those 2 gates, the king used to go to the city of Vibrajita, accompanied by a friend whose name was Dyuman. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajitam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyaivacha Patita Anam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasali Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Desha Tarine Mukam Karoti Vachanam Pangum Langayati Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam. So Narada Muni continues his allegorical description, and as has been mentioned already several times, it's a recurring theme in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Muni actually himself will come back a few times in his discourse with Maharaja Puranjana. Even at the very end of his instructions, after the king has become sufficiently enlightened, even then Narada Muni will again explain to him the Sankhya Yoga principles of breaking down the body and the world around us to their functional blocks or functional elements. And this is what Sankhya Yoga does, as we explained, also tried to explain at least. It disillusions us about the material world and gives us enough detachment from this world so we could direct our senses, both the eyes and the sense of hearing, the sense of smell and other senses, as we will also hear in the next verses, continuous verses, towards Krishna. We have a very limited capacity for emotions, for perception, for bodily function. Therefore, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita several times tells Arjuna that a successful yogi should limit both his or her hatred and affection. So the emotions of hatred, which are also very strong sometimes, they're much stronger than positive attachment. When we hate someone, we cannot stop thinking about the person usually. Or if we're envious of someone, that envy becomes the dominant emotion in our lives. And Krishna says, Raga Dveshvi Muktaistu, we have to get rid of both. Not because by themselves they're so destructive, even though they are, but they can be harnessed for devotional service, as Narottam Das Thakur explains in his bhajan that Prabhupada liked to quote. He said, Kama Krishna Karmarpane. The Kama means attachment, of course. Krishna Karmarpane. And Dvesha Bhakta Dvishtijane. Kroda Bhakta Dvishtijane, excuse me. That one's attachment or Kama should be directed towards achieving something great for Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada very expertly used that principle in his interaction with his disciples. He would sometimes tease them, as we heard the other day about him teasing his very small devotees, boys. But he would also tease his grown-up disciples, grown-up boys and girls, by telling them, so, you're so big monkey, big belly, Ceylon jumping melancholy. So you're big Americans or Europeans, Australians, Indians, what is your accomplishment? Do something great. Don't just eat. If you work hard, then you can also eat proportionately. But otherwise, what's your great achievement? And sometimes he would also incite very expertly that competitiveness between his disciples by turning to one of the leaders, okay, how many books did you distribute? And he gave his report, and then he would turn to the other leader walking right next to him, say, so, here, what is your accomplishment? Can you do more than him? Like that. So this is called Kama Krishna Karmarpane. And then Kroda, Bhakta Dvishtijane, Prabhupada explains that Kroda should be directed towards those who hate Krishna. And is so properly directed and used, Kroda or anger, which is otherwise very contaminating and blinding, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Dhyayato Vishayam Punsam, Sangatishu Pajayate, Sangat Sanjayate, Kama Kroda Vijayate. And he explains that if someone becomes too attached to the external objects and those attachments become frustrated, then it leads to anger, which blinds one by taking away one's intelligence. So many crimes or domestic violence or homicide occur because of, as they say, the person is in a state of being affected by anger, commits something that he or she later very much regret. So this is how we are advised by Krishna to properly channel our attachments. And that's why the eyes and the ears and the nostrils and other senses have to be properly guided. Krishna in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam also explains to Uddhava in the principles of civilized human life or we could say a regulated life for a devotee. When a devotee attains perfected state of being, then he or she do not have to think so much about regulating one's senses, because the senses develop their natural propensity to serve Krishna. They develop their natural affection, natural lust, you could say, natural anger, natural greed, natural pride. All these qualities or emotions become purified and invested in the senses. So much so that the devotee, as Jiva Goswami quotes in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam on one of the verses spoken by, I think, one of the Yogendras in the 2nd chapter, the Yogendras explain, the Yogendra explains the vision of a pure Madim Udimatikari, pure devotee, Sarva Bhuteshu Yah Pashyat Bhagavat Bhava Atmana Bhutani Bhagavat Atman Esha Bhagavatottama. That a pure devotee in Uttamadhikari is characterized by his or her ability to see this material world in terms of its relationship with Krishna, which is the objective, the only objective way to see this world. All other visions of this world separate the world from Krishna and therefore create an illusion for us. And at different stages of maturity in devotional service, devotees manifest some mature vision by first seeing Krishna through the eyes of the scripture in the Shastra, or through the mouth of one's spiritual master. And these devotees are sometimes compared to small children, like the day before, or when was that? A couple of days ago, when we remembered Krishna's children in Dwaraka, and those small children who are completely dependent on Krishna. They are not independent enough, not mature enough. They always hold on to Krishna's hand or to his finger, like that, and never leave his side. If any of you were children in your earlier life, you remember how next to your parents the world feels so secure, right? And because the father is who? He is the strongest person, right? He is the most powerful, and the mother is the most kind and the most beautiful woman in the world. That's the objective, subjective vision of the child. And then he or she, the child, needs to see things in this way. It's very narrow, but it's very conducive for his development, future development. So the same way, a devotee, when he is in his infantile state of development, a spiritual toddler, then he should see. And that's how his vision, now we're talking about vision. Puranjan, of course, in this particular instance, is exercising his external vision. That's why he goes out of his body to see something else, accompanied by his friend Yuman, which is the sun. But by one's internal vision, one starts seeing very clearly Krishna manifesting through the deities and also through the mouth of one spiritual master. And he doesn't see him anywhere else. So that fragmented vision is not mature, but it's very conducive for one's development. And this such a devotee is described as Prakrita Bhakta. Ishvara Tadadhi, what was the first? Doesn't go. Natad Bhakteshu Chanyeshu Sabhaktah Prakrita Smritaha. Archayam Eva, yeah, that's how it goes. Archayam Eva Haraya Pujam Yashadaye Hate Natad Bhakteshu Chanyeshu Sabhaktah Prakrita Smritaha. That childlike devotee is compared, is called a Prakrita Bhakta, a materialistic devotee, because he sees Krishna only present in the deity form and sometimes in the spiritual master, but he doesn't see him and doesn't offer the same respect to other devotees or to living entities in general. And then when he grows up a little bit more, you could say he becomes a teenager in one's spiritual development, then he starts seeing Krishna present in other objects and other receptacles of his presence. Ishvara tadadhinishu bolishesha dvishat sucha kripa prema maitri kripa piksha yat karoti samadhima. That's the intermediate stage of development, when he starts seeing Krishna present in the holy name, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and also in the hearts of those devotees who manifest Krishna by speaking about him or serving him, then he develops a semblance or we could say a preliminary stage of love for Krishna by trying always to depend on Krishna's mercy and seek and actively what's the word, the right word? The word I'm thinking about is mine, M-I-N-E. He is like a miner who tries to extract mercy from the devotees who he associates with. And that manifests in his or her behavior. They become very humble because humility is a natural way without asking for mercy. Sometimes, like Shachinanda Maharaj recently in one of his classes, he was laughing at that stereotyped, perfunctory parlance that devotees develop in their interactions. They come, Maharaj laughed. He said, come to me, he said, Maharaj, please forgive me for my offenses. Okay, and what offenses have you committed that I could forgive you for? Oh, it's just a figure of speech. He doesn't mean it. He doesn't mean anything by saying these words. Oh, I need your mercy. Okay, what kind of mercy do you need? And we get stuck like that. So we don't mean, it's a good way of expressing oneself. It's like become a culture or a tradition, and sometimes a mindless tradition of behaving in a particular way just because it's customary, it's the custom. But then if a devotee wants to develop further, then he or she should actually think about what we are taught to say or behave. We should mean, please, my dear devotees, be merciful to me. And we should behave in such a way that the mercy of devotees comes naturally to us, just like water naturally flows down to a lower place. The lower place doesn't have to ask for the water to come down and fill it up. Just by being lower, it's an example given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the same way, a devotee behaves in such a way that others naturally bless him or her. Like that verse, famous and often misunderstood verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which says that one no longer remains a debtor to Divarshi Bhutat Narinam Pitrinam Nakin Karanaya Rinich Rajam Sarvatmanaya Sharanam Sharanyam Gato Mukundam Parihritya Kartam. That verse literally says that if someone takes shelter of Mukunda, then he or she do not remain debtors to Divarshi, to the Devas, to the Rishis, to the other living entities, to his forefathers, or anyone else. He or she are cleared of all their debts. And devotees think, okay, good. So I surrender to Mukunda, so I don't have to pay my debts back to the creditors, sometimes quite literally. But interestingly, Prabhupada and Rupa Goswami explain something very deep and meaningful in this context. They say that because devotees develop such wonderful qualities by their devotional service, that all those people we owe a debt to, or personalities, devas, demigods, or rishis, and the forefathers, and other living entities, our relatives, they become so pleased with the devotee that they tell the devotee themselves, you don't need to do anything for us. We're happy. Just remain as you are and just continue serving Krishna. Please don't think about paying anything to us. Because the devotee actually, as he progresses, he feels increasingly indebted to others. Reaching the peak of such indebtedness at the point of Nuttamadhikari, thinking himself completely unqualified to be a devotee of Krishna, and thinking all living entities to be much better devotees of Krishna than himself. This is how Jiva Goswami explains the vision of Nuttamadhikari. We're just getting to that. He says, Sarva Bhuteshu Yah Pashyat Bhagavat Bhava Matmana Bhutani Bhagavat Atmani Esha Bhagavatottama. A pure devotee is someone who sees everybody and everything in relation to Krishna. And he explains, Jiva Goswami explains how this vision is manifested on 3 or 4 different levels of intensity. It's such a pure devotee thinks everyone to be a devotee, number one, and he is not an illusion. We are in illusion by thinking that someone in this world is not a devotee. It's an illusory perception. But a pure devotee in his spiritual, proper perception, vision, he sees everyone as a devotee, except oneself. And then Jiva Goswami explains, he sees everyone engaged in the same mood of service as he himself has for Krishna, but at the third level in a much better way. And he gives different examples of the gopis and other residents of Vrindavana who, looking at animate and inanimate objects in Vrindavana, think, oh, they're much better servants of Krishna than us. Let us serve them. Because we don't have any hope to serve Krishna directly, we don't have any qualification to serve him, we have no love. What is that statement by Srila Rupa Goswami? He says, Na prema shravanadi bhaktirapyava yogothava vaishnavo. He says, I don't have prema as a pure devotee. Actually, this verse is spoken by Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami also reproduces it in Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it captures their mentality properly of such a pure, great Uttamadhikari. And he says, I have no prema, na prema. Once Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj was asked by a lady disciple, she was very eager and anxious to know if she will ever attain pure love of Krishna, prema. Again, sometimes prema in our understanding is just like reward for our austerities. We perform austerities for many years and then, boom, you get prema as a reward for all the years of hard labor. So she asked, Guru Maharaj, will I ever attain prema? And Gaur Govinda Maharaj looked at her and said, yes, you will, but you'll never know about it. How do you like that? You will achieve pure love of Krishna, but you will never know. You will never feel it. So he says, na prema, I don't have any prema. Rupa Goswami says, Shravanadi Bhakti Rapiva, I don't have any qualification to perform Shravana in Kirtana. Whenever I chant, my mind becomes distracted. I once heard a very inspiring conversation of one Prabhupada's disciple with his godbrother. It was a recording of Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj. How many of you were fortunate to have seen him in person, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj? No? How many of you have seen Srila Prabhupada of you personally? Have you seen Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj? Yes, sir. He was such a effulgent personality he was. I met him just a couple of years before he passed away. It was 1999. We went to Puri to his Purushottam or something, Gaudiya. And he was very, you could say, externally ill, but he was so effulgent and happy. He would always chant Hare Krishna. So once a lady came, Prabhupada's disciple came to him, asking him, how do we chant properly? And Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, in his very weak, very humble, frail voice in the recording, you had to really listen in to hear what he was saying. He said, I don't know how to chant Hare Krishna properly. Because whenever I try to chant Hare Krishna, when I look at the dog, my mind goes with the dog. If I see a crow, my mind flies with the crow. Whatever I look at, I become distracted. I don't know. And then he went on to explain. It was like answering that question took about 2 hours for him. He was explaining how one should feel very humble and unqualified, undeserving to be serving Krishna, and be always eager to associate with those devotees who that devotee considers to be greater than him. Now for Kanishta Adhikari, that's a very hard instruction to fulfill, because they don't see too many devotees who are more exalted than him. But the more one progresses, the more he or she see other devotees, be it senior, junior, peers, whoever. All of them have that mercy of Krishna invested in them. And what it takes is just proper behavior and proper attitude towards them. And that mercy of the devotees, junior, senior, or in between, naturally flows. Therefore, an intermediate devotee is distinguished by his or her ability to make friends with devotees for their friendship's sake, for no other reason. And that's why these devotees, you could actually tell, at least by the external symptoms of maturity, you can tell those devotees who have already risen to that level by their ability to remember you when they don't need anything from you. Just because they think about you and love you, and they want to make sure that they can, everything is okay with you and they can be of some service to you. That's all. For no reason at all. And I was fortunate to see examples of such friendship in the lives of great devotees. Like recently we were again remembering Niranjana Maharaj with Swarupa Damodar Prabhu. And Niranjana Maharaj, of all his great qualities, he's a perfect friend. I haven't seen in my life a devotee more addicted to friendship with others, with his godbrother, than him. He can do anything, I mean anything, to get the association of his godbrothers or other devotees he considers them to be friends. Some of them are junior to him. Some of them are not Prabhupada's disciples. But he makes all different arrangements. He invites them for lunch. He gives them gifts. He thinks about what kind of gifts he could give to them. Like once they were taking treatment with Radhanath Maharaj somewhere in the clinic, and Niranjana Maharaj had a special book of bhajans. At that time, those very rare bhajans that he collected from different sources were not printed yet. But one disciple of his printed a special handmade copy of those bhajans for Niranjana Maharaj. And Radhanath Maharaj looked at it and he really liked it. Oh, such nice bhajans. Where can I get such a book? And you guessed it right, in a few days he had that book, because Niranjana Maharaj arranged for him to have it. And sometimes I remember back in the 90s when the internet was not yet present, so you couldn't really listen to classes as devotees do these days from the comfort of their homes, sometimes kitchens or other places, dining tables. But you had to physically be present to hear, and recordings were not easily available or distributed easily. Like during Prabhupada's times, devotees, whenever Prabhupada would give a class, they would record it on a tape, and then they would duplicate those tapes, and they would disseminate them by post across ISKCON. But it was very hard to get them immediately, so it would take time for you to listen to a Prabhupada's class. So Niranjana Maharaj would sometimes take a flight from another city just to come and listen to the class of Shivaram Maharaj, for instance. He would just come for that class and he would go back. I remember once I was at the festival with Niranjana Maharaj, the Russian festival, and he came first, and then the next guest who was supposed to come, and they were staying, it was arranged for them to stay in the same complex, the same kind of set of rooms next to each other. And Niranjana Maharaj had already settled down, and then Shivaram Maharaj arrived. And then Niranjana Maharaj, it was 2002, I think, or 2001, or thereabout. He came running out of his room with his arms outstretched towards Shivaram Maharaj, running towards him, and said, you know what he said? He was calling out. Take a guess. What would you say greeting a friend like Shivaram Maharaj or somebody? He started running towards him with his hands outstretched, just about to embrace him. What was he repeating as he was running towards Shivaram Maharaj? Take a guess. Take a guess. Huh? Krishna Katha, Krishna Katha, Krishna Katha. That was his Krishna Katha. That was his greeting of Shiv Maharaj. Huh? Like that. So they know how to make friends with the devotees, and therefore, because they make friends with devotees and they're so sheltered in that friendship with devotees, they have enough compassion and purity and taste to be effective in their manifestation of mercy or compassion to those who deserve the mercy. It's natural for them. They can extend the shelter they have with the devotees by way of inviting others who haven't not received that fortune. They don't think themselves to be better than others, but they think themselves to be just a bit more fortunate. Their fortune came to them earlier than to those who haven't received that association of devotees. And therefore preaching for them becomes very easy. I mean, it's difficult, it's always difficult. Prabhupada once heard a complaint of his disciple, said, Prabhupada, it's so difficult to preach in the West, or in Africa, or some other places. And what did Prabhupada say in return? He said, well, that's preaching. Preaching is always difficult. If it's not difficult, it's not preaching. That was his definition. If it's too easy, it's not preaching. But it's easy, it becomes easy for devotees to accept those difficulties, because he has taste and he has shelter. He wants to extend the mercy, the fortune that he feels to have received from his superiors, and he invites very generously others into the same shelter. And those who he cannot preach to yet, those envious people, upeksha, he carefully avoids, not because he hates them, but because he thinks, well, I'm not qualified to preach to them. And what he does, Madhikari, is characterized by his perfect behavior in such a way, he behaves in such a way that even those envious people cannot come up with an excuse to hate the devotee. They see all the reasons to respect such a devotee. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that such devotee's behavior is called sadachar. His meditation on how to help envious and demoniac people. Demonism or demoniac nature is not an objective state of mind of that particular person. You could say it's a measure of our inability to preach to them. Because again, the Uttama Adhikari, he sees that no one is a demon except him. I am the only demon in the universe. What was that bhajan Gopinath by Bhaktivinoda Thakur? He says, I am the only, all the demons have already attained the Lord's mercy except me. I am so unfortunate and fallen and corrupt, incorrigibly corrupt, that I cannot, I do not know how to serve Krishna. I don't have any hope, like that. So this is the vision that we develop by association with pure devotees. We're talking about the two eyes of King Puranjana, or the two gates of his city that he uses to see the external world. Devotees, they develop a special vision by the association of other devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda Sahaditau, Gaudadaya Pushpavantau, Chitrao, Samdao, Tamonudao, that these two wonderful lords, of course you have one wonderful lord on the altar, Lord Gaurahari, but you can understand that the other wonderful lord is being sent away by him to preach somewhere. So they never separated actually, because Lord Chaitanya is in his Avirbhava, or subtle manifestation, is always present in 4 places. Remember those places? The 4 places. There's a way to remember those 4 places. 2 are related to cooking and eating, and 2 are related to singing and dancing. So you have, and of the 2, eating and cooking and singing and dancing, 1 is stationary and 1 is mobile. So you have a matrix of eating and singing and dancing, mobile and stationary. So you have 4 places. So Lord Chaitanya is manifested in the 2 in 1 stationary cooking place, which is Mother Shachi, and he always goes there to check out what the mother cooked for him. When I open that YouTube, sometimes because I'm in South Africa, and I take no commission for repeating that Kellogg Cocoa Pops advertisement comes up, Power Breakfast. Have any of you seen it? It pops up, the advertisement. And that a small kid asks him, oh, I'm going to Kellogg Cocoa Pops. But you first take your first Power Breakfast first. And then I know I'm going to repeat that advertisement. But that anticipation of the kid to have what he wants to eat for breakfast is so well played. Even though the kid might even hate that Cocoa Pops, but because it's played by actors, it's very convincing. Makes you feel like checking it out. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the son of Mother Shachi. He's always eager to know what Mother Shachi cooked for him, what kind of power breakfast she made, because she's always minded, driven by her desire to feed something that will make him happy, which means it has to be tasty, and also healthy, which means it has to be healthy. So sometimes he goes to her place and he checks out, and he eats actually portion or the entire preparation, and Mother Shachi sees that the plate is empty, and she doesn't remember whether she actually put any plate on or any food on the plate, and she goes to the kitchen and checks the pots, and she sees the pots were actually emptied. So she doesn't know what to make of it, and she thinks maybe it's an animal. Some animal came and ate the offering, and she makes Ishan, the servant of the family, clean the kitchen, and she cooks again. And then there's a mobile catering party, which is Raghava Pandit and his sister, what's yours, Damayanti, that they cook something very special for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and deliver it to wherever he is. And then that food that they cook for Lord Chaitanya fills up a whole room. Them and also some other devotees, they bring their preparations to Lord Chaitanya, and it's stored in that room for many weeks sometimes, but doesn't go bad, doesn't go rotten. And Lord Chaitanya then tells Govinda, okay, come and bring everything, I'll eat it. And he eats it in one sitting. So there are the two. And the Lord Chaitanya is manifest in these two places, where Raghava Pandit cooks for him and brings, and wherever Shachadevi cooks for him. And then you have two places connected to Kirtan. One is stationary, which is Shiva Sangam. That's a place where the Kirtan is always going on. Wherever you go to Mayapur, if you visit Shiva Sangam, you can feel that the Kirtan is there, resounding. And then wherever Lord Nityananda travels and preaches and chants, so Lord Chaitanya travels with him. So they're not separated, inseparable. But Vandeshri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahaditao Gaudadaya Pushpavantao Chitrao Shamdao Tamonodao, these two luminaries on the sky of our spiritual life. Here King Puranjana takes help from Duman, a soul friend, which is the sun. Without the sun we cannot see. Even the artificial sources of light depend on the energy, chemical energy or atomic energy or some kind of energy produced by the sun. So even our artificial lighting is actually dependent on the sun, or its energy. Even such sources of power or electricity like the air, like wind turbines, or the tidal generation. There are so many different ways people, or the rivers, hydro powers, they all depend on the sun. But in a spiritual life, we depend on two luminaries, not just one sun, Lord Chaitanya, but also Lord Nityananda, who is the moon. Or the other way around, no, excuse me. Actually, Lord Chaitanya is the moon and Lord Nityananda is the sun. Is it correct? No, the other way around. Anyway, both of them arise simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, Chitram Shandao Tamonodao, these luminaries, these two celestial bodies, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, as the sun and moon, they have a special kind of illumination. Duman, the sun, only illuminates the external objects like pots and vessels, and we can see them externally when the sun rises. But these two lords, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, are just like transcendental sun and moon. Their rays dissipate the inner darkness. And because of their illumination, just like King Puranjana takes the help of the sun, external sun, to see the external things, the Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda illuminate within our inner spiritual universe such objects as the Bhagavatam, the book Bhagavatam, and the devotee Bhagavata. Because of their influence, we start appreciating and valuing and treasuring and cherishing the association of devotees around the Bhagavatam. And then it creates a whole new universe for us, which we can happily live in, within the hearts, and also manifest it externally. And also by extension, just like the rays of sun and moon are stored and then reproduced by different sources of light. I have a wristwatch, and it's got luminescent dials. So when you expose it to the sun and you go into darkness, it continues glowing in the darkness, so you can see the time. In the same way, devotees of Lord Chaitanya, they store and then give off that light of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda. So even when we are separated from Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, his devotees, their devotees come to our rescue and give us enough light to navigate in the darkness of the material world. Just like Lord Chaitanya sometimes would reject some devotees, like Chota Haridas. He was rejected by Lord Chaitanya in such a stern way that even his devotees were afraid to bring it up with them again, because Lord Chaitanya threatened them, if you speak with me about him again, I'll leave and you'll never see me. But because of their compassion, these devotees of Lord Chaitanya were able to somehow rather placate or take the edge off the severity of Lord Chaitanya's chastisement by providing Chota Haridas with their compassion. The same as Kala Krishna Das, who was also rejected by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the devotees arranged for him to go and serve Shachimata, like that. So I'd like to conclude with a very nice verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Krishna about the devotees. Like we spoke about Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda is a transcendental sun and moon, but also made reference to his devotees who are also, by extension, sources of spiritual light in our lives. And I would like to quote Lord Krishna to that effect. He speaks to Nalakuvara and Manigriva in the 10th chapter of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, when he delivered them and they shed their trees, the bodies of trees, and came out as effulgent demigods and started offering obeisances to Lord Krishna, a small boy who was crawling around tied to that mortar. And Lord Krishna told them, it's because of Narada Muni, my devotee, who gave you mercy by form of chastisement. Because he cursed you, he actually blessed you by cursing. And that's why you are able to see me. Otherwise, without his blessings, his good wishes, you wouldn't have been able to see me. The same applies to Durvasa Muni when he came running for his life to the Lord in Vaikuntha. The Lord told him, we quoted him his statement a few days ago. He says, Aham bhakta paradino hyasvatantri vadvijaha. I am not independent of my devotees. My devotees actually make me behave in certain ways. I am malleable or pliable. Devotees, by speaking about me, by serving me, by blessing others with service to me, they actually make me comply with their wishes. And Durvasa Muni, I can tell you, Niranjana Maharaj really liked this story, and he likes to remember the commentary of the Acharyas who give some details about the conversation between Durvasa Muni and the Lord. Durvasa Muni comes running to the Lord after trying and failing to get relief from that misery created by Sudarshan Chakra. He came to Brahma. Brahma said, I cannot help you, just go. Don't stay here, because otherwise I'll also be implicated. He came to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva said, I cannot help you. This is the personal weapon of the Lord. You'd better go to the Lord fast and ask him to revoke it. When he comes to the Lord said, sorry, I cannot help you because I'm not independent. If you want to have that Sudarshan Chakra revoked, withdrawn, go to Ambarish Maharaj. And he explains why. Because Durvasa Muni calls out to the Lord, trying to invoke his mercy. My Lord, please, have a heart. Please have a mind, think about my miseries. Please look at me, see how fatigued, how distressed I am. Please say something to me. And the Lord tells him, I'm sorry, Durvasa. What do you say? What are you saying? I don't have my ears, because my ears are always with my devotees. I don't see any of them but them, and they don't see anyone but me. I'm always in the hearts of my devotees. My devotees are in my heart. Naham tebi managapi, he says. Sadhuna hridayam tvaham. I am in the hearts of my devotees, and my devotees sadhavo hridayam, and they're in my heart. I do not know anyone but them, and they don't know anyone but me. So my eyes are looking at my devotees, and they cannot look at you. My ears always hear and hear only the words of my devotees. I cannot hear what you're saying. And I don't have a mind, because my mind has been given to my devotees. I can only think about them. And I don't have a heart. I'm heartless, because I gave my heart to my devotees. So if you want to get access to these faculties of mine, King Puranjana inhabits the city of 9 gates, which are the senses. I also inhabit the city. Of course, my senses are me. They don't know the difference between me and my senses, but my senses are given to my devotees. That's where they go. So if you want to hear your plea, if you want me to think about your plight, if you want me to respond, you go to Ambarisha Maharaj and say the same things that you're trying to tell me through him. Then I'll have mercy for you. And actually, to tell you the truth, Shivara Maharaj explains in his book on that pastime, even the fact that you see me is only by the mercy of Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva told you, you go to Vaikuntha, the Lord is there, and you'll see him and ask him. Because he promised that to you, I had to create an image of myself here, like a hologram. And that's why you see me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen me. You would have seen an empty space. But because a pure devotee promised that you would meet me here at Vaikuntha, I had to stay for you. Somehow I had to manifest that form that you can try and think to interact with, like that. And then, so the verse that Lord Krishna speaks to Nalakuvara Manigriva in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, he says, Sadunam samachitanam sutaram atkritatmanam darshanam no bhavet bandhah pumsok shnoh savitur yatha. So the word savitur is used here, which is a synonym of the word Dyuman. Dyuman means one that illuminates the sky, and savitur is a synonym of that. It's the sun. And Krishna says to Nalakuvara Manigriva, he says, when one is face to face with the sun, there is no longer darkness for one's eyes. Similarly, when one is face to face with the sadhu, a devotee who is fully determined and surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one will no longer be subject to material bondage. Like that. And Srila Prabhupada, I'll read a very short purport by Srila Prabhupada to this verse. He says, as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastrikai, Lava Matra Sadhu Samgi, Sarva Siddhi Hai. If by chance one meets a sadhu, a devotee, one's life is immediately successful and one is freed from material bondage. It may be argued that whereas someone may receive a sadhu with great respect, someone else may not receive a sadhu with such respect. A sadhu, however, is always equipoised toward everyone. Because of being a pure devotee, sadhu is always ready to deliver Krishna consciousness without discrimination. As soon as one sees a sadhu, one naturally becomes free. Like that. It was also Muchukunda's speaking about the eyes. Somehow I thought about Muchukunda, who had very powerful eyes, and he incinerated Kalayavana. Because Krishna didn't want to dirty his hands on Kalayavana, killing him. So he somehow or other managed things in such a way that he was incinerated, cremated on the spot, alive by Muchukunda. And Muchukunda saw Krishna and he started offering him obeisances and prayers. And he told him, whenever one's material existence comes to an end, then he sees a sadhu. And the acharyas explain in their purport on that verse, the statement that Muchukunda, he mixed up, swapped the cause and effect, because it's just like whenever one sees a sadhu, his material existence comes to an end. That's what he meant to say. But because it happens so fast, it appears as if it happens after one becomes freed from material existence. Just like you could say, before I even went out of my room, I became completely drenched. It rained so hard, so heavy. No, you did go out, and that's why you got drenched. But because it happened so fast, it appears as if you didn't even go out of your room, and you became completely wet. Or I didn't even sit at the table, dining table, so I became completely full. You did sit. But because there was so much prasad, it was so tasty, you didn't even notice how it happened. In the same way, the logic is, it's called Atishayokti Alankar. One meets a devotee and then his material existence comes to an end and his spiritual vision develops, just like when one is face to face with the sun, facing the sun, then there is no hope for him to to remain in darkness. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Sorry for going over time. Are there any corrections or comments? No? Good. Thank you. Yes, Prabhu. But I gave only two options, Swarupa Damodar Prabhu, a correction or a comment. Take your pick.
You can decide. Thank you, Madana Mohan Prabhu. There were so many wonderful points, so eloquently articulated. I was just thinking how the eyes, what were their names? Kodyata and Avirmukha. They are dependent on nature, on the sun, to have the ability to see those organs. Although if there's no light, they cannot see. And similarly, as you so elaborately mentioned, with so many wonderful pastimes and topics, that as devotees we also have eyes, and we want to develop our spiritual vision, and we may, approach the development of our spiritual vision in different ways. But if we don't approach the Vaishnavas for their mercy, there's no way we can see spiritually. We are completely dependent on them to be able to actually see reality. That to see material reality or material illusion, we need the sun, we need assistance, but to see spiritual reality, we are completely dependent on the Vaishnavas. Even if you go to see Krishna, the deity, we're so fortunate we see the deity, but still, to actually see the deity, we need the mercy of the Vaishnavas in some way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, exactly. And it reminds me of the story of Ramanuja Acharya. It's a very famous story. When in his city of Srirangam there was a materialistic man, Dhanurdas, who was infatuated with a lady named Himamba. And he was so enamored with her. They were not married, but he would always accompany her, fanning her and holding an umbrella above her head. And he would look at her. Sometimes he would just go backwards, looking at her and fanning. It was very strange. Even by modern standards, it would have been very weird seeing a man backing up, finding a lady and looking at her, bumping into objects. And so the disciples Ramanujacharya were laughing at him. But Ramanujacharya was compassionate, and he said, "Why are you laughing? Bring him here." So he asked him, "Why are you behaving in such a strange way?" And he honestly said, "Because I've never seen anything more beautiful than the two eyes of that lady, Himamba. Her eyes are so beautiful. So I cannot take my eyes off of her eyes." So Ramanujacharya said, "But if I show you eyes more beautiful than hers, will it change your behavior?" But of course, it's a natural thing, you don't have to ask. It's because beauty has that self-evident nature. You don't have to force yourself to be attracted to it. So he, as you mentioned, by the mercy of devotees, he brought him to Mangalarati. He said, "Please come to Mangalarati tomorrow, Shirangam." And then he came, and Ramanujacharya hid behind the gates, the doors, in the sanctum sanctorium next to the Lord, with a torch. Because one of the eyes is a torch, another one is a glowworm. So he had a torch of his love and also the physical torch. And when the gates opened one after another, and then Lord Ranganath was there, and Ramanujacharya lit the Lord with his torch and illuminated the eyes of the Lord, and Dhanurdhar was struck in his heart by that beauty, and he became a devotee. And then he also married Himamba. They were serving the Lord together, already looking at him, not at each other. So it shows, I'm sure Dhanurdas must have seen the Lord before, right, naturally, and also she did. But because of Ramanujacharya's, because that's what devotees have, that have the ability to amplify the beauty of the Lord by making our eyes properly attuned, and also by beautifying the Lord. The Lord is called Bhushana Bhushanangam, one who beautifies all the ornaments put on him. But devotees are the ornaments of the Lord. They manage to beautify the Lord. And Krishna is all attractive, but when devotees speak about him, he becomes all attractive, more attractive than all attractive. That's why he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yaidam paramam guhyam mad bhaktesha bedasiti. There is no one more dear to me than my devotees who preached about me to others, because they help me reveal or fulfill my all attractiveness. Because without them speaking about me, people won't get attracted to me. They do not. I try, but they don't. It doesn't work. But when they speak about me, somehow it works. I become more attractive. So that's why they're more dear to me than me. And Prabhupada says that Krishna without his devotees is not particularly attractive. He says in Krishna book, like an ordinary looking Krishna. But when devotees speak about him, then he becomes attractive. So I'm just sorry, that inspired me to remember that story. That's it. Right. Or we have another comment. Are we allowed to go over time?
Sorry about everything. I just want to know that if you have a bad past in your life, and then you went to ask for forgiveness to Krishna, to Jesus, to Hanuman, to all the temples and everything, how do you know you've been forgiven?
How do we know that we are forgiven for our bad deeds when we ask forgiveness? One thing is when they say, I forgive you, we can take their words at face value and we don't have to doubt their mercy, their compassion towards us. But another important internal symptom of being forgiven is that we start loving devotees and we feel like serving them spontaneously. Because this is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in his commentary on one of the verses spoken by Akrura in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. Akrura says, when will I get the mercy of your devotees? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that devotees' mercy comes from serving them. But you cannot serve them properly without being materially attached or materially contaminated. So that answers kind of part of your question. But then he asks, how do we get free from material contamination? He says, by association with devotees. And he says it all goes back to square one. So by asking devotees forgiveness and by serving them, we are forgiven by them, and then when that forgiveness kicks in, works, we develop a spontaneous desire to serve them properly without even a request to be forgiven. We just want to serve them. We don't care whether we are forgiven or not forgiven, we just want to serve them because that's all we want to do. Even that, as Rupa Goswami, that prayer says, I don't have prema, I don't have the ability to hear and chant about you, I don't have any eligibility for bhakti, yogyata, for Vaishnava. Being a Vaishnava means no faith. I don't have any knowledge, I have no shubha karma, pious activities, and I have no pious birth. I have nothing. Except, he says, Hindarthadi kasadeki, I have faith that you are the Lord, somehow you are compassionate, and you give the most valuable thing to the most wretched people like me. That's what I put my chips on. It's Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he once said, I put all my chips on Prabhupada. So I bank all my hope on the Lord's ability, on His desire to give the most valuable thing to the most wretched people. And even that hope somehow pains my heart, because I don't deserve it, but somehow I have it. So I hope it answers your question. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantha Raja ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande.